this is chapter 1, and it doesn't have, let me just see if it says verse or section, paragraph 25. Paragraph 25 of Ein Yaakov Berachot. So this is still in the opening pages of the section of the Talmud that talks about blessings. And we were talking about the Shema, talking about some of our blessings. We talked about Ashrei, that if we say Ashrei, say it 3 times a day, that we get special, we get to go to heaven if you say Ashrei 3 times a day. But that kind of opens up a discussion about suffering and about, yeah. Why?
It has to do with prayers.
Yeah.
Coming down.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, the 3rd time we say the Berachot, you don't bow.
Because you're only supposed to technically bow over the first blessings, opening and closing, and then you're not, and then you do it at the end of the Amidah, the Baruch. So that's really what you're supposed to do. I know, I don't get hung up on it because I don't talk to people about bowing and what they're, I decided a long time ago that when people get into the bowing and like, what am I supposed to do? It's just what I'm supposed to do. It's like, it takes away from the prayers. I know that you do it when you hear the word Baruch. It's not true. The Berachot, yeah, I don't think it's not in the Talmud, but there's a discussion I can show you about why we do it when we do it. We do it over the first blessing of the Amidah and the second to last blessing before the Osei Shalom, which is technically the last blessing. But yeah, it's a good question, but it's one that I don't, when people bow, look, there are people who bow other things, and I've been in places where I'm like, why is that person bowing there? It makes me feel uncomfortable because I don't know. But there's different traditions, and some of them are Ashkenazi traditions, some of them are Sephardic traditions, some of them are Hasidic traditions, a Chabad tradition, a Satmar. So even within the Hasidim, there are different bowing traditions. So I get uncomfortable if I don't know it, but then I decided, look, I don't want people to get hung up on when they're supposed to bow or when they're supposed to stand. The problem is if you don't tell people when to stand, then some people stand and some people sit, and it makes everybody uncomfortable. Some people, again, stand at the Chatzi Kaddish because it's supposed to be the introduction to the Amidah, and you're not supposed to stand before, you're not supposed to stand after you've said it. But it's an interesting thing because there are some people there are different opinions on standing for the Kaddish, both the Chatzi Kaddish and the mourner's Kaddish. Right. Some people don't stand for the mourner's Kaddish unless they're technically in mourning. Right. But then there's all other teachings. I know, but there are teachings about standing for the Kaddish all the time. But like I said, I don't like to get hung up on that.
At the Reform Temple, you stood for the Shema.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was going to ask them. Right? Since Mike opened the door, you get to ask a couple questions. So
yeah.
That's
sure. Ask whatever you want.
My question.
So the reason that the Reform movement stood for the Shema was because they thought that it was such an important, it is an important prayer, but that we stand for the Shema. The problem is the actual tradition is you're supposed to be whatever position that you're in before you said it. So if you're standing, you stay standing. If you're sitting, you stay sitting. The reason is clearly you can stand or sit for the Shema because it says in the Shema, you say it when you lie down and when you rise up. So you can't say to people, you're supposed to stand for it. So it seemed like you're only supposed to stand for, I'm just telling you the answer, the traditional answer. This is an answer. You ask the question, I'll give you the traditional answer because I can only give you the traditional answer. But the traditional answer was the only prayers that you're supposed to stand for technically are prayers that you bow for. There is no bowing in the Shema. So you don't, no. So you don't, no, but yeah, but you're not supposed to bow. You don't bow. You don't say Baruch Atah Adonai and you don't bow. So technically speaking, if you're not bowing, you don't need to stand. But the other tradition for the Shema was you were supposed to stay in whatever position you were in. So if you were standing for the Baruch Hu and you didn't sit after the Baruch Hu, look, by the way, the Talmud doesn't even get into those kinds of discussions about bowing completely. It doesn't really. It gets into other discussions about saying the Shema, and and we actually read some of them when we read about the Hashkivenu. When do you say the Hashkivenu? They're more concerned with what prayers you say rather than whether you're bowing or whether you're covering your eyes or all the other things that we do. They're more concerned with what prayers do you actually say. So the Talmud in this section is more concerned with what prayers you say and the fact that you say them every day. Like there's a section we're probably going to get to, maybe not today, where it literally says, if you're in the mode of praying every day, you better pray every day. Like don't say, if you're sick, that's one thing, but if you're taking a personal day off, don't do that. God doesn't take kindly to that, which is interesting because it's almost like saying, so are you going to fault me for the fact that I pray? What about the person who never prays? What about them? I'm just telling you, the Talmud does talk about this because they're assuming that everyone who's reading this is praying every day. So I will tell you, and this is a good discussion because it does help us understand some of what we'll read today and some of what we'll read in the future is they're assuming that people are praying every day.
One more question though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't we cover eyes?
Okay, so that's another question that's not exactly in the Talmud, but it is part of the discussion later on in traditions and discussing these kinds of things. So the tradition of covering your eyes before you do the lighting was this. If you do the lighting, so when you say the blessing over the candles, the first thing that you see when you take away your hands is the candles. You can't really say, so here's the basic question. Are you saying the blessing? You're not really saying the blessing over lighting the candles. You're saying over the blessing over seeing the light of the candles. So technically speaking, only one person lights it.
Right.
Everyone else is seeing it. So you don't have to light candles in order to fulfill the mitzvah of lighting candles on Shabbos, which, by the way, is in itself an interesting thing because nowhere in the Torah does it say you're supposed to light candles on Shabbos. Nowhere. As a matter of fact, it seems like you're not supposed to light candles on Shabbat, which is interesting because we made a rule that you light the candles just before Shabbos, and that's the last thing you ever light for the rest of the next 24 hours. But I don't want to freak you out, but the tradition of lighting candles on Shabbat and the tradition of like really getting into lighting candles on holidays probably came from the Persians. Yeah, because it came from this period of, not this period of the Talmud, came from the period of when we lived in Persia that we're reading about in Zechariah and Haggai. Those people were really into, Zoroastrians were really into candles and lights. That's their thing. Fire is their thing. Like, I just read an article, by the way. There was an article about Zoroastrians in the New York Times recently, or Wall Street Journal. There was just an article about the last Zoroastrians. But yeah, they're very into fire. Like they like the ones that still are alive in India, like there's hardly any left, but the last remaining group, they tend to their fire. That's like their thing. They have fire that, they brought with them from Iran and whatever. They're very into fire. It seems as though we kind of picked up that fire lighting tradition from them. So some of our traditions about lighting candles probably came from the cultures around us. And there probably were blessings where like people covered their eyes and then saw their light and that was their thing. The Jewish tradition, kind of the version of that was that when you cover your eyes, when you actually look at the lights, that's when you say that's when you fulfill the mitzvah of what you just blessed. Because normally you don't say a blessing. Normally you don't say a blessing after you've done something, right? Normally you do the blessing and then, like, let's say you're going to do hamotzi. You don't say the hamotzi after you've eaten the bread. You say a hamotzi and then you eat the bread. The thing about candles is, well, you made the light by lighting the candles before you said the blessing, but you have to light them. And then when you look at them, that's when you're actually fulfilling the mitzvah. And so your eyes are covered while you're saying the blessing. And when you look at it, you've said the blessing and now you can look at the candles. So it's kind of a weird way of getting around this issue of, well, how do you say the blessing for something and then do the thing? Well, you got to light the candles. So you could make the argument, well, don't we light the candles, say the blessing, then light the candles and look at the candles? I mean, but the problem is, I'm just telling you, technically speaking, this is the weird, like the mentality you have to get into here. The minute that you lit the candles, you're not supposed to light another light for the rest of Shabbos. Once you said that blessing, you're done. No more lighting. And people are very strict about that. Yeah, they're very strict about that. If the light, yeah, yeah,
Even if it's electric?
yeah. Well,
Yeah, I don't know.
they have a something in it so that all they have to do is like turn up it's technically on already. There's an oven you can get with it. You can get a GE oven with a Shabbos setting on it. Yeah, look it up. Yeah, look it up. They do. They have a setting. Does anybody on the line know this? I'm not like, here, I'll just show you. Yeah.
You just have to set it ahead of time,
Yeah, I'll just show you.
and it'll come on and off. The elevators are scheduled.
Here.
Anyway, you can tell me anything.
Here's the
That's the one thing.
according to the GE owner's manual,
You can do.
set the GE oven
ahead of time.
Sabbath mode. You need to press the bake and broil pads at the same time and hold them for 3 seconds until SF appears on the display. Then press the set clock until SAB appears. And when SAB appears, press the start button. So,
Rabbi, I was just told that we have that on ours.
yeah. I mean, you can. I mean, you know, there have to be, you know, it has to be one that has it. Not everyone has it, but if it has it, yeah. Yep. So there's enough people that they put it on. All right, those are all good questions. They're all stuff that's, well, at least some of it opens up from this. But like I said, I try not to go down that road because, yeah, well, it is something that, it's helpful to have a refresher course in it. A little bit of it is, like I said, is being introduced here. But this is a bigger philosophical issue, as I said. This one's going to blow people's minds. Yes. Yeah.
The one prayer where you bow.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
The bow in the different directions, that's the end of the Mourner's Kaddish. So the tradition of bowing in different directions at the end of the Mourner's Kaddish. So some people just bow. The idea of bowing in 3 different directions is one tradition that I don't even know when I started doing it, but I started doing it more frequently as I saw more and more people doing it. I kind of like, I don't want to say I go with the crowd on things, but like when I see people like really embracing something, I'm like, yeah, that's good. The tradition of bowing when we do the Osei Shalom, at least the way I understand it, the way it's been told to me, is we bow the different directions when we're actually kind of saying Osei Shalom. As we say Osei Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, we bow in 3 different directions as we're kind of like bowing around, like asking for Shalom to be everywhere. So it's kind of like it's basically like a Shalom everywhere. Here's Joyce. She made it. Joyce made it, everybody. And we didn't start. We're waiting for you. We were. Yeah. What were you saying, Mike? Sorry. The bowing in different directions? I don't think so. Let me just see. I think it was even it predates, I think, even Sephardic. I don't know if it's in the Talmud. They discuss this kind of stuff, but well, no, it's in the Shulchan Aruch, which technically is around the time that we get these different so yeah. I don't know. I'll show you it's not a Sephardic. It's not a difference of Sephardic and yeah. No, so the Amida,
When you go,
the Amida is the stepping backwards, stepping
No, but then-
backwards and then stepping in.
first part, you go Elohe, Abraham.
Oh, yeah.
Elohe, Yitzhak,
But you're not
Elohe.
supposed to bow 3 times.
I mean, they like nod.
Look, some people do. Yeah. I mean, I kind of, as I go through the patriarchs and matriarchs, I sometimes like count them on my fingers. I mean, the phrase, it's like, I don't mind getting off on this tangent because this is what Berachot is all about, the blessings. So when we say the blessings, Elohe Avraham, Elohe Yitzhak, Elohe Yaakov, Elohe, and we add the matriarchs, Elohe Sarah, Elohe Rivka, Elohe Leah, Elohe Rachel, which, by the way, there's differences of opinion whether you should say Rachel or Leah at the end.
Well,
I-
some have one way, some have.
I like Leah and Rachel because that's the way they got married, but and also the way they had kids. However, when I go through those names, I tend to think about them. I try to think about them. I try to bring them in my mind as I'm saying their names. So it's a little bit fast, so it's a little bit hard to think about them. I don't know what they look like. Like I know exactly what they look like, but I try to think about Abraham and Sarah and Jacob. I try to think about them dealing with what they would have dealt with in their lives when they were, we read about them in the Bible a lot, but well, some of them more than others. Isaac, we don't read that much about, but try to think about them and try to think about the, what they experienced, what they would have, how we would have learned from them. Look, just because we're talking about it now and because it was raised and it's a good question, and the Amidah is definitely a big part of Berachot. So I'm just going to bring it up so you can see the, let me just show you the text. So this is just the patriarch part. If you just do the patriarch, right? Whoa. This is from my Jewish learning. So it says, blessed are you, God, blessed are you, Lord our God and God of our fathers, Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov. Right? And then again, we add Elohei. Now, the Talmud brings this up. I don't know if it's the Ein Yaakov, but we can find it when we get to it, but I'm going to tell it to you now. So it says in the Amidah every night or every day, whenever we pray it, every morning, whenever we're saying the Amidah, we say the words, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. Right? Why doesn't it just say God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Why does it say God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob? We have to say that 3 times. We don't just say Elohei Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. That's what the normal thing you think it would be. But each time we say Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov. And the tradition is, the understanding is that each one of our patriarchs and matriarchs understood God differently. They had a different experience of God. God did not appear to Abraham in the same way that God appeared to Jacob. They didn't have the same relationship with God. They didn't speak to God the same way. They didn't see God the same way. God did not look the same to each of them. So we can't say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because God didn't appear to them the same way. That's why we have to say God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob. Now, obviously, the teaching from that is that each one of us sees God differently.
Absolutely.
So we can't say the God of John, the God of Joyce, the God of Glory, the God of Jesse, God of Karen,
There's only one God.
God of Mary. So this is what we have to understand, is that each one of us experiences God differently. Just what, by the way we experience every human being differently. My 3 daughters experience me differently from each other. They each have a different feeling about who their dad is.
But we all know the dog is their number one.
We all agree. They all agree. My daughter Rachel's moving back to Boston next month.
No.
Yeah, she's moving back. And you didn't know that? She's moving back. You knew that, Gloria, didn't you? You didn't know? Yeah, she's moving back in June. In a couple of weeks. So,
That's a big deal.
yeah, it's sad, right? I mean, she's moving back. She lived out here for 2 years and she didn't really love it. her place got broken into, her car got broken into, her mailbox got broken into, there's homeless people sleeping out in front of her apartment. And she doesn't like it. I don't blame her. It's hard to, then again, she didn't have to live in Fairfax, but she wanted to. That's where she wanted to experience LA. She grew up in the suburbs, so she wanted to live in Fairfax. Fairfax. Like no one in my family ever lived in Fairfax, but she wanted to live in Fairfax anyways. What? Did you say something?
Except there's your first problem.
Yeah.
You want to live in the city.
Yeah, I look, that's what she wants. So she's moving back. But that's not the point. The point is she says to me today, she says, Dad, what if I become a Red Sox fan? I said, well,
You were disowned, right?
it's okay. I said, I can live with that. What if I become a Patriots fan? I said, I used to like the Patriots until they became so good. When they were bad, I liked them. There's nothing wrong with being a Patriots. I said, what if I become a Celtics fan? I said, then you get nothing. You cut out of the will. He said, sure. I said, Rachel, I said, in reality, we're not big basketball fans in our house, but I grew up at a time when the Celtics were evil. I said, I could almost accept more that you convert to another religion than you come to me and tell me that you're a Celtic fan. She said, do you mean that, Dad? I said, I think I do. I think I could stand you more wearing a cross than a Larry Bird jersey. So I can see that. Well, I can live with that. I can't live with you being a Larry Bird fan. So she said,
Being a Red Sox fan?
yeah, whatever. They were horrible for 86 years. I wouldn't want her to be. There's worse things to be. I'd be a Giants fan. If she was a Giants fan, then we'd have to have a talk. But yeah, no, we have these discussions. So my daughters all have different feelings about me. And I would say, depending on who you ask, again, that, Dad is tough on me or, whatever. He's not tough. He's whatever. So they all have different feelings.
Hey, everybody has different feelings about everybody.
Yeah.
Like I love Joyce,
Yes.
but not everybody.
Everybody loves Joyce. Everyone loves Joyce. That's an easy one. Anyways, the point is that it's a wonderful idea that tradition tells us that we don't have to have one image of God. Now, I will tell you, this is one of the things I love about Judaism, is that there is no image of God ever depicted, right? And the only way you can have a God that doesn't have an image, that is free to be different for me or you, what God looks like, is for me not to have an image of God. And not even to try to be honest, to try to stop using the word he when I say God, because if God is a man, then I've already made God in one image. It's very hard. It's very hard. Sometimes, you say, well, can God be a woman to you? I guess.
Rabbi Gonzalez, she would say, yeah.
Yeah. It's harder for me because I didn't grow up that way, but it definitely, I know it's there. I know it's in the rabbinic texts. I know that the description of the Shekhinah is a feminine form, so it must be. But I think that it's important for us to understand that that's why I always tell people, look, what difference does it make what I think about God? You're going to have your own image of God. I'm not going to tell you what God looks like. And that's one of the things that the Amidah teaches us. So thank you, everybody, for asking about bowing and talking about the Amidah, because guess what? That is something that I always teach, and I teach our kids that. I teach our kids in Hebrew school that. I have at least once a year told the kids when they're doing the Amidah, when we're learning the Amidah, why do we say this Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov? Why do we have to say the word Elohei 3 times or 7 times? Right? That's an important teaching for our kids. It's a tough one, right? Because people want to know what God looks like. I can't tell you. Well, Moses only saw God's back. I'll tell you what God's back looks like, but not what God's front, not what God's face looks like. So let's take a look at this finally, which is going to be a lot to think about today. It's going to give you much to ponder. So we're taught that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, one of the great rabbis in the Mishnaic period, he lived during the time of the Roman persecutions during the Bar Kokhba revolt. He actually hid out from the Romans, according to tradition, for about a dozen years. He hid out from the Romans because the Romans wanted to kill him. So he hid out with his son in a cave from the Romans. Interestingly, when they finally came out, he didn't get arrested or killed, but his son ended up becoming kind of a collaborator, which was weird.
Who's this?
Maybe after he died. Shimon Bar Yochai, this rabbi. He's considered, by the way, according to tradition, he's the author of the Kabbalah of the Zohar. He probably wasn't the author of the Zohar, but according to tradition, he was the author of the Zohar because he was a mystical guy. He's an interesting guy. Every year on the holiday of Lag BaOmer, people go out to Meron in northern Israel and they light these huge bonfires. And they've had problems. People have been killed while they've been a mob of people that come for the celebrations in Meron for Shimon Bar Yochai. The chief rabbi is telling people not to do this anymore. The reason why that's important is it's time for it right now. The Lag BaOmer is coming up. So they're telling people not to do it, especially this year. Israel doesn't need to have another catastrophe on their hands with people going to Meron. Anyways, that's Shimon Bar Yochai.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
Before we get into this, because I saw
Yeah.
in the text,
Yeah.
at least I think it's section 25. We haven't discussed this, but I've been doing quite a bit of reading on this.
Yeah.
And when did Syria, Palestinian change to just Palestine? Do you have a-
Are we going to talk about that right now because it says it in here?
Yeah.
Well, let me
I
explain.
don't call it Palestine.
I understand, and I won't say that right now. I don't say that either. By the way, this is what happens at Meron for Lag BaOmer. So this was some of the bonfires. They had 45 people were crushed to death in a stampede in Meron in what year was that? That was yeah, this was in 2021, so 3 years ago. 45 were killed total. So 100,000 people came together for Lag BaOmer at Meron. So they're telling people not to, especially this year, not to do it. So, John, the term as Palestine without Syro-Palestina comes to an end when the Byzantines lost power.
When the Ottomans took over?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the Ottomans first; it was the Arabs, and then the Crusaders took over, and they didn't use Syro-Palestina. They divided up the country by kingdoms, and they had the kingdom of Jerusalem, they had the kingdom of Antioch. They divided up their kingdom into different, but they didn't use that term. So by the Middle Ages, the term was already gone. This translation of the Talmud was done in 1913. So during the 1913 period, which is the Ottoman period, and then into the British period, they used the British obviously used the term Palestine. Jews used the term Palestine without an issue. The Jews were actually called Palestinians, just so you know. There was no Palestinian people. No, there was no Palestinian people. So the Palestinians, or the people who lived in Palestine, were Jews and Arabs and anyone who lived in Palestine. Everybody knows the English-speaking paper for Israel is called what? No, the English-speaking paper. Jerusalem Post. Right? Up until 1940 something, 47 or 48, it was called the Palestine Post. Our newspaper was called the Palestine Post. It was a paper for Jews written in English. It was called the Palestine Post. They called it Palestine Post because it was alliterative. It's not, you don't have to call a newspaper. There are other posts, but they could have called it the Times, the whatever. They called it the Palestine Post because it was Palestine. So this translation was from that period. So clearly the word that's used in the Talmud, right? The word that's used in the Talmud is right here.
I find that very interesting because the Romans right? They renamed it to try and
Yeah,
remove his,
Yes.
to the victor.
Yes.
To the spoils, right? So they tried to change
yes,
history.
and they did. They called it something else, which unfortunately stuck
And
because
that's right.
for most of the last 2,000 years, that's what they used. By the way, the Arabs didn't use the term Palestine for it. Not during that period. They didn't use the term Palestine for it. The Arabs didn't. Not during that period. Not during their first conquest. They didn't call it Palestine.
No,
So here's the words in Hebrew. Torah, Eretz Yisrael, Ve'olam haba. So let's take a look. Right? Eretz Yisrael. That's what the word is. So if we were translating it today, we would call it the land of Israel. So let's read it. The three precious gifts, the Holy One, praise be He, bestowed on Israel, and none of them was bestowed without affliction. Ooh. So that's going to be our theme for today. But how relevant? The three gifts, right? The three of them are the Torah, the land of Israel, and the world to come. Whoa. How do we know? Where do we learn the Torah was given with affliction? It's written in Psalms. Happy is the man whom you admonish. This is from Psalm 94. O Lord, from thy Torah thou teachest him. Okay, so the Torah admonishes us. That's what I'll just show you the line real quick. You can see it. Happy is the man whom you discipline or admonish, right? And the word is yasar, which is the root for affliction, the man you instruct in your teaching. So that's the Torah. There's affliction in it, or definitely punishment to it. Then the next one, where do we learn that the land of Israel was given with affliction? It says in Deuteronomy, in Devarim, thou shalt consider thy heart that as a man chastens his son, so the Lord your God chastened you. Immediately following those words are the words, for the Lord your God brings you into a good land. So it doesn't say the land of Israel is going to be a chastisement to you or an affliction for you, but it does say a man chastens his son. And then it says, and the Lord brings you into a good land. So the things go together. They say the juxtaposition of those two things is there's punishment that comes with the land of Israel. Where do we learn that the world to come was given with affliction? It says in Proverbs, where the commandment is a lamp and the Torah is a light, and the way of life is to administer correction, which technically speaking, again, here's the line from Proverbs, ner mitzvah, the Torah or, which is a beautiful line. People usually only talk about the first part, right? The commandment is a lamp, is a light. The teaching is a light, is light, right? Beautiful line. We oftentimes leave out the last part. The derech haim, the way of life, is one that rebukes with discipline or with, again, well, the word musar we oftentimes translate as being ethical correction or ethical focus, but it's one that has as its root that same word, yasar, affliction. So the rabbis point out, well, all of these words affliction are all used for these three things. Now, clearly, they have a lesson to teach from this, right? Now, anyways, here, where do you even get that that's the world to come? The line from Proverbs doesn't really say that that's the world to come, but they understand that the lamp and the light are the world to come. And what is it? What is it? It's the way of life. The light is the light that comes from the world to come. And so the Chaim is not this world, the world to come. So when we get into Proverbs, people on Tuesdays, which we'll be in months and months from now, after we finish Psalms, we'll be in Proverbs. We'll start talking about these lines. We'll actually get to know them in their original context. But here are the rabbis doing what they always do, which is take the stuff out of context and teach a lesson from that. Now we're going to get into what this actually means. What do these afflictions actually mean? Again, I'm just warning you ahead of time. This is a way of making sense of suffering. You may agree with it, you may not agree with it. I'm presenting it to you because it's in the Talmud and it's part of our tradition, and it does affect the way people feel even today, especially in the Orthodox world. And it is a way that people have made sense of all affliction, including the Holocaust, including suffering that people have today, including to some extent what's going on in Gaza. All of the affliction that we suffer to some extent can be made sense of by what you're about to hear. I'm not saying that it's the way I encourage people to make sense of things. It's the way I make sense of things. It's the way some people make sense of things in Jewish tradition. Let's read it. A disciple recited before Rabbi Yochanan, whoever occupies himself with the study of Torah and with the practice of loving kindness and buries his children during his life will have all his sins forgiven. Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Well, it is heavy, because if you haven't been studying Torah your whole life, and something happens to your kids.
Well, the point is if you have been studying Torah and you have been doing good deeds and you suffer, you're going straight to heaven. That's the way this gets kicked off. Now, it's going to be like that, folks. So just hang on to your hat, because this is what it's going to, this is the discussion. Does suffering in this world essentially buy us a fast pass to the world to come? And if that's the case, then can I make sense of my suffering as a way for me to essentially have an eternity at peace and surrounded by good things? I'll trade this world for the next world. I'll trade my 70 years, if I'm lucky, in this world to have an eternity of bliss. It is right, said Rabbi Yochanan to him, in the cases of Torah and charity, for it is written in Proverbs again, through kindness is iniquity atoned for. Chesed, kindness, means the practice of loving kindness, right? The acts of gemilut chasadim, doing good deeds. He that pursueth righteousness and kindness, emet, means the Torah, for it is said, also in Proverbs, buy the truth, emet, and sell it not. But as to one who buries his children, where do we learn? So I can see things in the Bible that tell us, if I do good things, if I study Torah, that's true. But what about this part that you've now told me about burying our children? An old gentleman, doesn't say who, taught Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the guy we just read about at the beginning. We infer this through the rule of an analogy. Analogy, right? It's one of the ways they logically come up with things. From the word iniquity, avon, it is written, through kindness and truth is iniquity atoned for, as it is written in Jeremiah. So it says in Jeremiah, and that's the line from Jeremiah. One second. It's not the Jeremiah quote. Here it is. You show kindness to the 1,000th generation, but visit the guilt of parents upon their children after them. Well, that's the line that we have heard many times, right? Visiting guilt unto the children. Oh, dang, what just happened to my English? Hold it a second. I apologize. I can't do that for some reason. Taking that out, took out the English. Okay. Um, I don't know how it just jumped ahead. Sorry about that. So in Jeremiah, it says, again, the children would be punished. It inflicts the iniquities, avon, of the fathers into the bosoms of the children after them, just as avon refers to atones, so does the latter. Rabbi Yochanan said, leprosy and bearing children are not to be considered among the afflictions which come from the love of God. And is not leprosy an affliction that comes from love? Have we not been taught whoever is afflicted with one of these four forms of leprosy should deem it nothing else but an altar of forgiveness? Wait a second. So so one guy says leprosy and bearing children are afflictions that come from God. But somebody else says, no, they're not. But then somebody says, yeah, but we read that leprosy is an affliction that comes from God. Rabbi Yochanan answered, it is true that it is an altar of forgiveness, but it is not an affliction which comes from the love of God. And if you wish, you may say that one statement refers to those who dwell in Babylon and the others who dwell in the land of Israel. So maybe it's different depending on where you live. If you live in the land of Israel, maybe then if you're afflicted with these things, this is God's way of essentially getting you into the next world. So, and if you wish, they say that's one possibility. If you wish, this is what the Talmud does, throws out cases. You may say that one statement deals with leprosy in a hidden place and the other deals with leprosy in an open place, which means not in an open place on the planet, but an open place where people can see it. The death of the children, you say, is not from affliction of love. So they're challenging him. How can you say that? How shall we construe this case? Shall we say that he had children, but they died? Then my objection is that Rabbi Yochanan himself said, this is the bone of my 10th son who I have buried. Rabbi Yochanan himself had 10 children who died. So isn't this an example of somebody who was afflicted by the love of God? But the statement of Rabbi Yochanan refers to the case where there were no children born, and the latter deals with a case where there were children born, but died during their parents' lifetime. And so what they're saying is Rabbi Yochanan didn't have 10 children. He had 10 miscarriages, and that doesn't count. They're talking about children who actually died while their parents were alive. These children never actually were born. So they're having a discussion again of these afflictions. Let us go a little further on. And again, wait a second. Where's the translation again?
I don't know, I did that too, when I started reading it on Safari, for some reason, they just stop halfway through. And it's all-
I know, but I found this translation. So you know what I might have to do? I apologize, everybody. I'm going to go to the actual section itself. So, I apologize that I have to do this. So I'm going to go to the actual section itself. I don't know. Sometimes it happens, and Jesse, you've seen it. Sometimes I think it's there, and then it just disappears somehow. So let me just go to the section in the actual Talmud on this discussion. Here it is. Here we go. Well, the part we just read is this argument over whether Rabbi Yochanan really had sons or whether they were just the fact that he had a terrible situation with having lots of miscarriages. His wife had a lot of miscarriages. Okay, hold it one second. Hold it one second. Went too far. Hold on a second. Jesse, do you see it? Is there a page on there?
What?
Oh, you don't have the book with you. You didn't bring the Ein Yaakov with you.
Well, I have the Shabbos.
Oh, that's right. You don't have the.
There.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to get to it. It's right in this section, but I just need to find it. It's right about here. I apologize that the English disappeared. I'm almost here, sorry. I might have skipped over it. Hold it a second. Yeah, I skipped over it. I'm sorry. Unless, yeah, I don't, I apologize because I've been reading it back and forth between the Talmud and this Ein Yaakov translation, and I can't find it now. Oh, man. That's terrible. No, I definitely went too far. One second, people. 1 second. All right. Okay, I might be missing one section, but I apologize if I can't find it. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, even school children who learn only the written Torah know this concept as is stated. And he said, you shall surely hear the voice of the Lord your God, and what is upright in his eyes you shall do and listen. So this whole quote from Exodus, it says right here, one must interpret anyone who is able to engage in Torah yet does not engage in that study. Not only does the Holy One, blessed be he, fail to protect him, he brings on him hideous afflictions that embarrass him and trouble him. As it is stated, I was mute with silence. This is not the part that I wanted to show you. I don't know. I'm not sure which part. I'm not sure. I apologize what part disappeared, but it actually disappeared from here and I can't find it. Oh, you know what? Could it be that this translation isn't finished either, Jesse?
I'm not entirely sure, because now I'm all confused, because I just saw you do that, and I tried the same thing, so now I'm confused the difference between the Talmud Berachot and the Ein Yaakov Berachot.
The only question is which parts were included and which parts were even translated. Anyways, let's start at this part. I apologize.
The Shabbos starts at 3b and it goes on. Next page is 9b.
Yeah, well, that would be in these pages that are missing, because this is 5a. But I want to read this section right here. Because this goes back to the Torah. Rabbi Zera, and some say Rabbi Hanina Bar Papa, said, come and see how the characteristics of the Holy One. This is what God does. They're unlike the characteristics of you and I, of flesh and blood. It is characteristic of flesh and blood that when one sells an object to another person, the seller grieves the loss of his possession and the buyer rejoices. So when you and I sell something to another person, and it's something of value and we like it, we don't like selling it to them, right? We have seller's remorse. Does that ever happen to you, John?
Every day.
Where you've sold something and you say, I wish I hadn't sold that. And then, of course, the buyer rejoices. Not so with God. With the Holy One, blessed be he, however, this is not so. He gave the Torah to Israel and rejoiced, as it is stated, for I have given you a good portion, my Torah, and do not abandon it. A good portion is understood as a good purchase. Although God sold the Torah to Israel, he rejoices in the sale and praises the object before its owner. So what does it mean? It means that God actually sold us the Torah and was happy with it, because God's not like us. When we sell something, we have remorse that we did it. Now,
What did we give him? What was the consideration?
what do we give God back for the Torah? That's a good question. What do you think? So the covenant, right? The covenant that we went into with God, that will follow the commandments, that will dedicate our children, the next generation, to God. All of these things were kind of the price for the covenant. for the agreement that we made with God. I guess the way we look at it is we got the better end of the deal. So that's a great line. I love that God actually is different than us, because we don't feel that way when we've sold something that is of value to us. We lament that we had to give it up.
To glorify him and praise him.
Yeah, but think about it. All of this stuff is considered not equal to that thing, which we got, which was the Torah. Then there's a question here of the suffering. Rava, and some say Rav Chisda, said, if a person sees that suffering has befallen him, he should examine his actions. Generally, suffering comes about as punishment for one's transgression. As it is stated in Lamentations, we will search and examine our ways and return to God. So normally when we get punished, it's because we deserved it. If he examined his ways and found no transgression for which that suffering is appropriate, he may attribute his suffering to the dereliction in the study of Torah. God punishes an individual for dereliction in the study of Torah in order to emphasize the gravity of the issue, as it is stated, happy is the man whom you punish, Lord, and teach out of your law. That was that line that we read from Psalms. So God is sometimes punishing us to get us to study. That's interesting. That's not the end of it, I promise. So this verse teaches us that suffering will cause us to return to the law, start studying it again. So first thing is, you deserved it. If you didn't deserve it, because you're not studying Torah enough, this is going to help you focus back on studying Torah. But wait. If he did attribute his suffering to the dereliction of study of Torah, and he did not find it to be so, so if that's what he thought, but it turns out that's not the problem. He is studying Torah enough. Here's the kicker. He may be confident that these are afflictions of love. As it is stated, for whom the Lord loves, he rebukes, as does a father the son in whom he delights. So, if you didn't deserve it, and if it's not because you're not studying Torah enough, it's because God loves you. You're suffering because God loves you. These are called Yisurin Shel Ahava, suffering of God's love for you. Yisurin Shel Ahava. So you've now been introduced to a concept that exists in Judaism, which is afflictions of love that God gives us.
Is there not a scene in Philip where Debbie said, don't love me so much?
Pick someone else. Yeah. But that's where it comes from, John. It comes from this understanding where we're suffering because God loves us. Why do the Jewish people suffer so much? Because God loves us so much.
When was this written?
2,500 years ago, 2,200 years ago. This section is an old section. So too, Rava said, and Rav Sahora said, that Rav Huna said, anyone in whom the Holy One, blessed be he, delights, he oppresses him with suffering, as it is stated, yet in whom the Lord delights, he oppresses him with disease, to see if his soul would offer itself in guilt, that he might see his children lengthen his days, and the desire of the Lord might prosper by his hand. This verse illustrates that in whomever God delights, he afflicts with illness. Now look, the text in bold is the actual lines from the Talmud. Everything else around it is commentary and ways to kind of help you. This is a way of understanding the suffering. Now, it's not over. I might have thought that God delights in him even if he does not accept his suffering with love. Therefore, the verse teaches, if his soul would offer itself in guilt, just as a guilt offering is brought knowingly, as it is the one who sacrifices offered willingly, without coercion, so too is suffering. It must be accepted knowingly. So the thing only works. This whole system of suffering only works if you know it and you accept it and you love it. Yeah. Why is it hard? Why is it hard, Joyce?
It's hard because it feels contradictory. We cherish those we love. We don't necessarily rebuke them more.
Well, this is assuming that God does it to us. And this is assuming that God does it to us, not that people should do it, but that God does it to us because it allows us to some extent, to be free of guilt.
At the same time, like you rebuke and you keep people in check that you care about, right? Like you correct your kids because you're like, I care about you and I don't want you to be a nuisance to everyone around you. So I'm going to teach you how to behave properly, and that sometimes means getting you in trouble because I want you to be a good kid, right? Because there's, random people on the side of the street. I don't correct them because I don't care about them.
Yeah. So the suffering that we deal with in this life then becomes, to some extent, a way for us to demonstrate God's love for us. That assumes, by the way, that we're not deserving of the stuff to begin with, right? So if we're not good people, then the assumption is, well, God's going to punish you with something because you're not good. But if you're a really good person and yet you're suffering, you have cancer, you have lost all your money, whatever, just disasters are falling on you, the assumption is the way to make sense of that is that God loves that person so much. I'm telling you that this is what's at stake with people. And what happens is that people literally feel, to some extent, this guilt of enjoying things in this world. So within the really, really Orthodox, very religious communities, there is a sense that if you enjoy life too much, you're actually contradicting, you're living contradictory to this way, which is if I have a tougher time in this world, then in the next world, I'm going to have more beautiful things. It only works if you accept it.
The patriarchs were struggled, but they were also gifted.
So what are you gifted with? If one accepts the suffering with love, what is his reward? As the second part of the verse says, that he might see his children lengthen his days. Moreover, in addition to these earthly rewards, his Torah study will endure and his Torah study will be successful, as is said, the purpose of the Lord. That's Torah. The revelations of God's will might prosper by his hand. So his Torah will extend, his children will get to live, but that's not it. With regards to the acceptance of affliction with love, what exactly that entails. Rabbi Yaakov bar Edi and Rabbi Acha bar Hanina disagree. One of them said, afflictions of love are any that do not cause dereliction in the study of Torah. So that means any which do not afflict his body to the extent that he is unable to study Torah. Right? So if you can't study Torah, that can't be an affliction of love. As it is stated, happy is the man who you afflict, O Lord, and teach from your Torah. That's the line from Psalms. Afflictions of love are when you teach from your Torah. And one said, afflictions of love are any that do not cause dereliction in the recitation of prayer. As it says also in Psalms, blessed is God who did not turn away my prayer. Despite his suffering, the afflicted is still capable of praying to God. So he can study Torah, he can still pray. This must be afflictions of love. Affliction of love wouldn't stop him from doing that. God wouldn't stop someone from studying Torah or praying. Rabbi Abba, son of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, right, said, my father, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, said, Rabbi Yochanan said as follows. So this goes back to Rabbi Yochanan again. Both, even afflictions that cause dereliction in the study of Torah and those that cause dereliction in the recitation of prayer, are still afflictions of love. As with regard to one who suffers without transgression, it is stated, for whom he loves, he rebukes. And an inability to study Torah and to pray are among his afflictions. So there's this teaching that Rabbi Yochanan had said, even if you're so sick that you can't study or you can't pray, those are still afflictions of love. Well, here we're going to get to this really interesting thing, of course, that you're going to see. What then is the meaning of the verse that states, and teach him from your Torah? Do not read and teach him, and teach to mean teach him, rather to teach us. That's the word telam denu. Read it telam denu. It's just, again, you're supposed to say telam denu with this vocalization instead of that vocalization. Sounds almost the same, but it's teach him, but teach us. Teach us the value of this affliction from your Torah. It is taught from an a fortiori, which is learning something from a little case. Let's learn a big case. Did you know this, folks? The law of the tooth and the eye of a slave. Tooth and the eye are each a single limb of a person, and if a master damages either, the slave thereby obtains his freedom. Suffering that cleanses a person's entire body, or all the more so that one attains freedom, atonement from his sins. What is this telling us? We're going to see it very clearly here. You understand what they're saying? According to the Torah, if you damage the tooth or the eye of a slave, you have to free him immediately. It's a law. That's pretty, like, the tooth. I mean, that's easy to hurt the guy's tooth. I mean, you hit the guy in the mouth, breaks his tooth, he's free, done. Your slave is now free. Well, if God damages us at all, right? If a tooth or a limb, any kind, eye, whatever, if it gets damaged, they're free. If God hurts us, damages us to some extent, we're free from sin. God frees us. We're free.
I don't get how that atonement from sin, where's that come from? It doesn't make any sense.
Because we're God's slaves to some extent, right? We're God's servants. So if we hurt a servant, they're free. If God hurts us, we're free.
Yeah, but how does that atone for one's sins? That's what it's
Because what keeps us from really being free in this world? Our sins. Who holds us responsible for that? God. Our sins are our servitude to some extent. That's the reason that we're slaves is our sin. So we're free from that once we essentially are suffering.
I got a quick, weird question.
Yep.
How do we know when God is hurting us or if we hurt ourselves?
Well,
Meaning, I tripped and I broke my ankle.
Wasn't that what it was just saying, is like, if there's an understandable reality, then it's man-made. It's like, oh, I'm a perfectly good person, I've been studying, I've been talking to my family, everyone likes me, but I just got diagnosed with leukemia. What's up with that?
Sure.
And it's like, oh, that's.
and
That's not anybody.
we're actually going to see that what you're about to see is part of this whole experience is our acceptance of it. You'll see. This next part is kind of an interesting kind of digression. And this is the statement of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. I told you, the guy that was the gladiator rabbi. As Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, the word covenant is used with regard to salt, and the word covenant is used with regard to affliction. The word covenant is used in salt where it says, the salt of the covenant with your God should not be excluded from your meal offering. That's from Leviticus. And the word covenant is used with regard to afflictions, as is written, the words of the covenant in Deuteronomy. It says the the words of the covenant and the salt of the covenant. So the words and the salt go together. Just as the covenant mentioned with regard to salt, the salt sweetens the taste of the meat and renders it edible. So too, the covenant mentioned with regard to suffering, the suffering cleanses a person's transgressions, purifying him for a more sublime existence. So the salt that makes meat taste better is like the suffering that makes us better. Let's read what that means. Oh, this was actually the introduction to the part that I got to the part that we started. So, sorry, I found it.
I was wondering.
Yeah, here's the part right here. So, interestingly, that part wasn't in the Ein Yaakov, but, so here's the part right here. Well, yep, right here. This is where we left off. This is the part that we read last. Rabbi, the part that we we skipped backwards a little bit. Yeah, we read part that was not part of the Ein Yaakov. So this was the part that we left off with before with Rabbi Yochanan, who had the bone of his 10th son. So, the commentary on that is that Rabbi Yochanan experienced the death of 10 of his children, and he kept a small bone from his 10th child as a painful memorial. You're not supposed to keep the bones of a child, by the way. He would show that bone to others to console them, and since he showed it to them, the deaths of his children must certainly have been afflictions of love. He consoled others by displaying that there is an element of intimacy with God that exists in suffering. Why then would Rabbi Yochanan have said that the suffering due to his children is not the afflictions of love? Rather, one must conclude that Rabbi Yochanan said that those afflictions are not afflictions of love. He was speaking with regard to one who has no children, and when one had children who died, this could very well be considered afflictions of love. So he was talking about people who don't have kids. Well, here's the part that we're going to get to that it has to do with you accepting it. The Gemara continues to address the issue of suffering and affliction. Rabbi Yochanan's student, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, fell ill. Rabbi Yochanan, same guy, enters to visit him and said to him, "Is your suffering dear to you?" That's all the Talmud says, but the commentary on it is, "Do you desire to be ill and afflicted?" Rabbi Chia said to him, "I welcome neither the suffering nor its reward. As one who welcomes the suffering with love is rewarded." Rabbi Yochanan said to him, "Give me your hand." Rabbi Chia bar Abba gave him his hand, and Rabbi Yochanan stood him up and restored him to health. So,
That's a miracle.
yep. So these are people doing the same thing that, according to the Christian Bible, Jesus did, which is healing people by touching them, by holding them. So the interaction here is, though, that Rabbi Yochanan says to him, his student, "Is this an affliction of love? Is this something that you want to take on?" He said, "No, this is not something that I want to suffer with in order to be forgiven, or I don't feel that this is that kind of thing." So he heals him. Rabbi Yochanan fell ill. Rabbi Hanina entered to visit him and said to him, "Is your suffering dear to you?" And Rabbi Yochanan said to him, "I welcome neither the suffering nor its reward." Rabbi Hanina said to him, "Give me your hand." He gave him his hand, and Rabbi Hanina stood him up and restored him to health. I told you. Hang on to your hat. I told you this is what we're going to read today. So these people had the ability not only to heal people, but to contextualize and to help them see that their suffering was not part of any agreement that they wanted to have with God to some extent, that this was going to take away any sins or any kind of atonement through this healing. So the Gemara asks, why did Rabbi Yochanan wait? So why? So the question is, why? Amai, why did Rabbi Yochanan wait for Rabbi Hanina to restore him to health? If he was able to heal a student, let Rabbi Yochanan stand up himself. So the Talmud asks a great question. The guy has healing powers. Heal yourself. Heal thyself, right? Here's the answer. Gemara says, a prisoner cannot free himself from prison. It depends on others to release him from the shackles. Well, that's the commentary. But the line in the Talmud is, a prisoner cannot free himself. You need someone else to free you. Interesting teaching. And even if the guy could heal him, he's a great healer, you can't heal yourself. You need somebody else to do it for you. Doesn't matter whether he had powers. He needed somebody to do it for him. Which, by the way, then there's a very interesting discussion that can be had about this scene. First of all, it tells you when people say, well, how did the rabbis make sense of stories about Jesus? Well, they've got their own stories. But then there's an interesting question that people would have said, well, if Jesus could have healed other people, why didn't he heal himself? And that would have been one of the answers that the rabbis would have said for people who have healing powers. You can't heal yourself. So this is the way that they would have understood it in those days. They would have said that. But again, this is all interesting discussion to some extent because it shows that if the people wanted this to be part of their lives, that they would have suffered with it. That seems to be kind of the lesson from this. That's part of the mentality here, folks. So let's look.
Is I want to suffer, so I make it to hell.
So let's get to this. The Gemara relates that Rabbi Elazar, another one of Rabbi Yochanan's students, fell ill. Rabbi Yochanan entered to visit him and saw that he was lying in a dark room. Rabbi Yochanan exposed his arm, and light radiated from his flesh, filling the house. He saw that Rabbi Elazar was crying and said to him, "Why are you crying?" Thinking that his crying was over the suffering that he endured throughout his life, Rabbi Yochanan attempted to comfort him. He says, "If you are weeping because you did not study as much Torah as you would have liked, we learned one who brings a substantial sacrifice and one who brings a meager sacrifice have equal merit, as long as he directs his heart towards heaven." So if you didn't, or if you did, if you intended it for good, it's not, don't worry. It's not because you didn't study enough Torah. If you're weeping because you lack sustenance and are unable to earn a livelihood, as Rabbi Eliezer was, indeed quite poor, not every person merits to eat off two tables, one of wealth and one of Torah. So not everybody gets to have money and Torah, okay? So you don't bemoan the fact that you're not wealthy, right? Don't worry about that. That's not something you should cry about. If you're crying over children who have died, this is the bone of my 10th son. And suffering of that kind afflicts great people, and they are afflictions of love. And so he brought out the bone. That's the story. That's the story of how Rabbi Yochanan would tell people. Now, it's a weird story because, again, we are not supposed to keep pieces of people's bodies. I mean, that's a known fact. We're not supposed to walk around with a relic of somebody's body. It's just not something we're supposed to do. Right? So the rabbis know that, by the way. They know that that's not something that a rabbi is supposed to be doing, walking around with a bone. So it shows you that, this is the way, this is something that Rabbi Yochanan would tell people. But here's the kicker. Rabbi Elazar said to Rabbi Yochanan, "I'm not crying over my misfortune, but rather over this beauty of yours that will decompose in the earth." As Rabbi Yochanan's beauty caused him to consider human mortality, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, "Over this it is certainly appropriate to weep. Both cried over the fleeting nature of beauty in the world and death that eventually overcomes all. So, yeah, according to tradition, Rabbi Yochanan was very beautiful. He's a beautiful man, right? It's like stunningly gorgeous guy. He's the Brad Pitt of the rabbis. And the rabbis know it. They know he's a gorgeous guy. Like they're all like, I wish I could look like that guy. And so this rabbi who's suffering himself says, my body dies, your body. But look, man, look how amazingly you're going to die just like everybody else. The beauty that you have, this amazing beauty that you have, is going to be gone. It's going to rot away just like everything else. It's not permanent. It's not forever. And he says, yeah, that's something to cry over. The fact that we're all going to die. That's something to cry over. So, he's so beautiful that like his body was giving off light. I'll just tell you this because I don't know if we'll ever get to it. It's a pretty wild story about Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was so good looking that guy that we talked about, Reish Lakish, the one who was a gladiator, according to the story, according to the Talmud, when Reish Lakish first saw Rabbi Yochanan, he fell in love with him. And Reish Lakish was a tough dude. He was a gladiator. He was a warrior. And Rabbi Yochanan seems to be worried that something bad is about to happen to him with Reish Lakish. It's not a rabbi yet. And Reish Lakish, Yochanan, and this is in the Talmud, folks. This is not like some story that like somebody made up hundreds of years later. It's in the Talmud itself. Rabbi Yochanan says, I have a sister who looks just like me. Stay away from me. Don't look at me like that. You can marry my sister if you study Torah and dedicate yourself to goodness. You can marry her. It's a weird story. But Rabbi Yochanan's beauty was so supposedly so amazingly stunning that even Reish Lakish fell in love with him. But remember, Yochanan and Reish Lakish got in a fight. It was such a bad fight that they both died of kind of like, Rabbi Yochanan died when Reish Lakish died of a broken heart, but Reish Lakish died because he got in a fight with him. So they had great feelings for each other forever, even though they got in a fight. And remember, they got in a fight because Reish Lakish was trying to tell Rabbi Yochanan that he was wrong about what knives are kosher to kill something with, and then Yochanan said back to him, well, you're a gladiator, of course you know what would kill someone or kill an animal. And then Reish Lakish says, you're not supposed to hold over what I used to do over me. It's a great scene. A great scene, their relationship. But it's a tough one, folks, because it's a very unusual story in the Talmud. It's a scene that Orthodox Jews have difficulty with, but they all know it. They all know that Rabbi Yochanan's beauty was definitely a thing. But let's finish. We're not done with the story yet, folks. Meanwhile, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, is your suffering dear to you? And Rabbi Elazar said to him, I welcome neither the suffering nor its reward. Upon hearing this, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, give me your hand. And Rabbi Elazar gave him his hand, and Rabbi Yochanan stood him up and restored him to health. So that's the way, again, they would heal people. But again, it was contingent on the fact that they did not need to be suffering. They did not need the reward. This was not something that they felt they needed to go through. Now here's one story that has nothing to do with health, but has to do with income. It has to do with stuff that you own. So it says that it's another story regarding divine punishment. 400 barrels of Rav Huna's wine fermented and turned to vinegar. which of course causes him great financial loss. And you figure that out. He had wine that went bad. Rav Yehuda, the brother of Rav Salah the Pious, along with the sages, and some say Rav Ada bar Ahava, along with the sages, entered to visit him and said, Master, you should examine, Rabbi, you should examine your actions, right? Because perhaps he committed a transgression for which he's being punished. Rav Huna said to them, am I suspect in your eyes? Have I committed anything? Any transgression you should tell me I'm doing wrong? They said to him, is the Holy One, blessed be he, suspect that he exacts punishment without justice? Does God punish without reason? Your loss was certainly just, and you must examine your conduct and find out why, right? So this is the commentary. I mean, you figure that out. The sages were aware of a flaw in his conduct, right? Rav Huna said to them, if someone has heard something improper that I've done, let him say so. They said to him, we have heard that the master does not give his share of grapevines to his tenant farmers. You don't share your wealth, right? You're not sharing it with the people who work with you. A tenant farmer is entitled to a portion of the crop grown on the landlord's property, as well as a share of the vines, right? It's part of the profit sharing. Profit sharing. Rav Huna said to them, does this tenant farmer leave me anything from the produce that he grows on my property? He steals it all. Consequently, in denying him a share of the grapevines, I'm simply recouping that which was stolen from me in the first place. So he says, you don't know what you're talking about. These people are stealing from you all the time. I don't need to give them anything. They're already stealing it. That's why I don't give it to them. So they said, those stories you heard about me, you don't know what you're talking about. The people are stealing from me. I just don't give them extra because they're already stolen it. They said to him, that is the meaning of the folks saying, one who steals from a thief has a taste of theft. So despite the fact that the property was stolen to begin with, one nevertheless engages in theft. Although he did not violate a prohibition per se, it is still a form of theft, and one who is held to a higher standard than others will be punished for it. So maybe again, you can't do that. You can't just simply say, well, they're already stealing from me. You can't then steal from them to punish them because it's part of a cycle of theft. He said to them, I accept upon myself to give my tenant farmer his portion in the future. Thereupon, as a result of Rav Huna's repentance, God restored his loss. Some say his vinegar turned back into wine, and some say that the price of vinegar rose and it was sold at the price of wine. So I love that story because it shows you that the rabbis were engaged in business. They did business. They had business, and that's the Rav Huna was a wine broker. And he realized that he had screwed up and figured it out, and they came to God was okay with the conclusion that he couldn't justify it, right? It's one of those arguments that, like, in Rav Huna's eyes, he wasn't doing anything wrong because he was already losing, right? It's kind of somebody who justifies doing something wrong to somebody who's done something wrong to them. And they're basically telling him, Rav Huna, you can't do that. You can't do that. You're supposed to be above that kind of behavior. So once he agreed and kind of figured out, it's not going to work. Everything worked out for him. So that's a situation not of bodily suffering, but financial suffering. So sometimes people suffer for that.
I think it's a case of like justice as well, because I was watching a talk from a rabbi earlier, and he was talking about, I forget specifically, but it's a type of logical fallacy where you put the blame on somebody else to excuse your own wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, I can break the law because he broke the law. It's like, you're still breaking the law. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's okay. So he's saying, yeah, well, they're stealing from me, so therefore I'm stealing. So you're still stealing. You're still knowingly breaking the law. That's why you got in trouble.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's an interesting question. It's an ethical dilemma. I mean, I've faced it before in my life where I've thought to myself, well, here's an example to some extent is like, what's a bad example? Well, maybe it's not a bad example of exactly the same thing. But I think of it in this way. I think of it in this way. There's a mentality that we get into where it actually, Dennis Prager has talked about it before, so it's not like I'm not inventing this. And I don't know if it's 100% like, I don't know if everyone will agree with me or agree with him, but he's said before, Prager said before, and I think it's true because I feel it. In states that have higher tax rates, people give less charity.
It's a great example in the state of California, like we have the most taxes, so we can say we give the most charity, and then this state has the most tax loopholes, so you can legally not pay taxes.
So that's the issue, right? So if you're really good and if you have a really good, well, if you have a really good account, you're going to pay less, less taxes. You're going to pay less taxes than someone who has a bad account, though, John. Let's face it. That's not the point. The point is when you feel like you've been taxed too much and you feel that your taxes are going to take care of the homeless, let's say, for example, or the unhoused, whatever I'm supposed to say, the people who don't have a home, if you're being taxed for it and then you feel like I already gave, there's a mentality to that. Now you could say, well, did you really? Do you know for a fact? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not the exact same thing, but I think there's this feeling like they've already stolen from me already. So I'm not going to give more. I'm not going to give what I should give because look, we're supposed to tithe. We're supposed to give our money to the poor. But there is this mentality, I think, to some extent that like, you've already taken it from me. You've already taxed me at this rate. So why would I now give in addition to that? So maybe it's not exactly the same thing, but I think it's a similar kind of thing that we go, though we don't feel necessarily that we've been stolen from, maybe we do, but we do feel like we already gave. So that's when I read that, I kind of think about that, but maybe it's not exactly the same thing. But I do think that there's that feeling that like, okay. So so the next section that we're actually going to read that's actually in the Ein Yaakov is let me just get to the part of where we're, gosh, I don't think this is in the Ein Yaakov part, but I'm not 100% sure. I just want to show you. I want to show you one discussion in the Talmud that kind of, I don't know.
We just finished 4.
Yeah. So here's a discussion. Again, I'm not 100% sure it's in the Ein Yaakov, but it is very agadic. This is definitely not law. It was taught in a Baraita, which is again a section of Mishnah that wasn't in the Mishnah, but was written at that time. It was written by a rabbi, and they're quoting it now, even though it's not in the Mishnah. Where Abba Benjamin would say, all my life I've taken great pains with regards to 2 things, that my prayer should be before my bed and that my bed should be placed north to south. Abba Binyamin's statement requires explanation. That my prayer should be done before my bed. The Gemara asks, what does the before my bed mean? If you say that it's literally means that he should stand before his bed and pray, it's difficult. Rav Yehuda said, and some say said that Rav said, and some say Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, from where is it derived that one who prays should have nothing separating him and the wall, as is stated, and Hezekiah turned to face the wall and prayed. It's a line that we have in the book of Isaiah about how King Hezekiah prayed in order to facilitate his concentration during prayer. That being said, why would Abba Binyamin pray before his bed? Rather did not say before my bed, rather where he stood for prayer, but rather say adjacent to his bed. And so he would say the Shema. Yeah. Yeah. So then they say, but why would my bed have to be placed north to south? Because he said, pray before his bed. Okay, so they had a discussion. Is it actually before his bed or on the side of his bed? But here's the weird thing about north to south. My bed should be placed north to south was in deference to the divine presence, which rests between the east and west, the direction of the temple. as the Holy of Holies was to the west, while the main entrance is to the east. Therefore, the sages were careful not to perform actions inconsistent with that sanctity while facing east to west. Therefore, Rabbi Abba Binyamin was careful not to sleep in a bed that faced east to west. What does that all mean? If you face your bed north to south, if you're lying north to south, I'm just going to tell you, I said it's agadic. I said it's kind of legend. Interesting story or interesting thought. God travels east to west. The sun travels east to west, but east to west, the Holy One goes from east to west. If you're lying north-south, you're not exposing yourself to God. That was the understanding, that if your bed was facing north to south, that you were doing it the right way. I don't know. I'm just telling you. It's north-south, but it's partly because we don't want to be by the window. It's a similar idea. You're not supposed to show your privates to your neighbors either, for that matter. So that's probably. So here's what it says. Just so I'll tell you, in praise of this, I think it is Ein Yaakov. In praise of that stringency, the sages added that Rabbi Hama said, that Rabbi Hanina said, that Rabbi Yitzhak said, one who places his bed facing north to south will be rewarded with male children, as it is stated, and whose belly will, it wasn't always north to south, will fill your treasure. I think it has been, by the way. Utzfonecha, who you have sons in plenty, and leave their abundance to their babies. That's a line from Psalms. This verse indicates that one who sets his bed facing north will be rewarded with sons in plenty, as the word saphon, north, is connected to the word tzfunecha. There you go. All right, well, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzhak said, moreover, his wife will not miscarry. Where do we derive that? As it is written, and whose belly you fill tamaleh with your treasure. As it is written there concerning Rebekah's pregnancy, and her time to give birth was fulfilled, vayimaleu, and there were twins in her belly. Consequently, you will fill with your treasure refers to pregnancy that proceeds without complication. So you'll get children more easily if you lay that way. All right, but let's get to some more serious things, which is right here. So they threw out that teaching from Rabbi Abba Binyamin about praying, and he also taught, Abba Binyamin says, if two people enter a synagogue outside of the city in order to pray, and one began praying before the other did and did not wait for the other person to complete his prayer and left him alone in the synagogue, his prayer is thrown back in his face. Yeah, because he left the other person alone and caused him to be distracted during his prayer. His own prayer, it's like he didn't even do it. As it is stated, you have thrown your soul in your face, for your sake will the earth be forsaken. That's a line from Job. The rock will be moved from its place. This verse indicates that one who left the other person alone effectively causes his soul, as prayer is the outpouring of the soul before God, to be thrown in his face. God says to that person, for your sake, do not think because you left, the earth will be forsaken, that God will leave the world and the prayer of that other person will go unheard. Don't do that. Not only that, but it causes the divine presence to remove itself from Israel. As it is stated in the continuation of the verse, the rock will be moved from the place. The rock, God, is forced to remove his presence. And the rock means nothing other than the Holy One, blessed be he, as it is stated, of the rock that gave birth to you, you have been unmindful. Again, the God is called Tzur. It's called Tzur Yisrael. God is the rock. Okay. And if he waits for him in the synagogue, what is his reward? Okay. Is his reward proportion to the punishment received if he didn't do it? In terms of the reward, Rabbi Yosef, son of Rabbi Hanina, said, one who waits in the synagogue for the other to finish his prayer merits the following blessing as is stated. only you would listen to my mitzvot, then your peace should be as a river and your righteousness as the waves of the sea. Your seed would be of the sand and your offspring of your body, like the grains thereof, right? This is a line from Isaiah. His name would be neither cut off nor destroyed before me. The explanation of this passage is based on the etymological similarity between the words mitzvah and the words tzevet, which means group. If he keeps the other person company and does not abandon him after his prayer, all of his blessings that appear later in the verse will be fulfilled. So do not leave somebody alone while they're praying. If you come with them, I mean, if you don't know them, it's not an issue. But if you came together, you were going to pray together, and you all walked out and left that person, it's like you didn't even bother.
So on Friday nights when we do the Amidah, do we all? so we all
No,
stay standing?
no, you don't have to all stay standing, but you don't leave in the middle of it. You
Yeah,
don't
would you
walk
sit
out.
Down and show me a form of leaving.
No, but it's not.
You're emotionally detached from the prayer.
No, you're doing your own prayer. You are allowed, the Amidah you're allowed, and the Talmud actually talks about, you're allowed to do the Amidah at your own pace. But if you left, not just, it's not if you go to the bathroom, if you left your friend alone, the understanding is this. What do you have to do that's more important than this? So if you think, and that's what it says, if you think that anything you are doing for your sake, do you think because you left, the earth will be forsaken? Like, what do you think? Do you think that your work that you're doing? Oh, sorry. Oh,
Mike leaves us, he goes into the room
oh, I don't know. I don't know why it's,
with Carl.
guys, I don't know why it's not working. Huh. Folks, I have no idea why it stopped. Oh, you know what? I don't know. Sorry. Hold it a second. Oh. I don't know what happened. Hold it a second. Let me just, I apologize. I was not sharing the right page. Oh, yeah, people have said that. Yeah. People are actually texting. No, yeah, no, I apologize. I was,
Taught, or I was taught, maybe by my dad, that there's certain prayers that you're not supposed to leave the sanctuary, even to go to the restroom, like during the Amidah.
oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not supposed to.
You're doing the chores.
No, but if you're done with your reading of the Amidah and you come back, you can come back. You can come back. If,
You were told not to until the Amidah is over.
look, there's some people who say you don't walk out of the synagogue while people are still praying, but I mean, I guess it seems to me from the context that it's leaving the person alone in the synagogue. That to me is the issue. If you came with a friend and you were going to pray together and you leave, that's what they're telling people not to do. You know? That's what they're talking about.
John, I would never leave you.
So now Rabbi Abba Binyamin says something else. And they're just throwing in stuff that Rabbi Abba Binyamin said. Okay? He talked about that. He talked about this. He talked about prayer. And then he said this. Another Baraita, Rabbi Abba Binyamin says, if the eye was given permission to see, no creature would be able to withstand the abundance of ubiquity of the demons and continue to live unaffected by them. If your eyes can see what's happening right now, all around the world or in front of you, wherever you are, and you saw what's you can't see, your mind would be blown. What they said. Now,
I think he's right.
listen, this is the word that's used there, mazikin, right? That it's not the devil, it's not Satan, it's not the Antichrist, it's not evil. But the word mazikin it's the word that's used, we've said it before, when our Yiddish speaking grandparents or parents or great whatever, whoever spoke Yiddish in your house, who called you a mazik, or called the little kids maziks, those little demons, they're talking about more like impish things. These are not things that necessarily are doing evil, but they are things that are doing things. They're things that are moving things, are there. Again, mazikin are never like, I don't want to say this is satanic forces. No. So a mazikin is the plural. So what I think they're saying, what I believe he's saying, is that the human mind can't comprehend and can't see everything that's happening around them without, like, our eyes can't see it, which is true, because our eyes, like, if you could see energy around you all the time, it would freak you out. You couldn't handle it, right? We can't take that in. We can't withstand that. It says you can't take in that. You're not able to take it. You can't stand. I mean, the literal translation is you can't stand it. Withstanding it is a fine translation, because the word amud means to stand. You couldn't stand up if you couldn't handle it. It's too much for you. It doesn't mean that you'd be upset with how much evil you saw. It's not what it means. That's not the literal meaning of what this is. It is also probably not a good translation. There's no creature, because it's pretty clearly human beings that they're talking about here. If human beings could see this stuff.
Could it mean if you saw all the bacteria and germs and
I
viruses?
100% believe, by the way, Joyce, that that's what they're also talking about,
Oh, okay.
because they understood that people
'Cause
got
we see
sick,
those things around.
and they understood that. Because, for example, Joyce, in other places, when they talk about the fact that you have to wash your hands because otherwise there's demons there.
And we can't see the germs on our hands.
I'm going to show you right now what I think Joyce is 100% right about, is that I think that they were talking about everything: energy, light, sources of energy that we can't see, and bacteria and viruses. So I'm going to just show you another place in the Talmud where I think it's pretty clear that they're talking about this. I'll show you right now. There's another section. I'll open up Safaria.
And because if you study quantum physics, you know that we are surrounded by so many things we cannot see.
Yeah.
And that we affect them and they affect us.
Yeah, here's another line where it's specifically, they're talking about, they don't understand it. Rav Huna said, this is from the section Ta'anit, the tractate Ta'anit, and when he had a new medicine, he would fill a water jug with the medicine and hang it from the doorpost of his house, saying, all who need, let him come take from the new medicine. Which, by the way, kol ditzrich. It's exactly what we say in the Halach Ma'an. Yeah, it's the same phrase in Aramaic. Kol ditzrich, anyone who needs. Let him come and take his medicine. And there were some say he had a remedy against the demon Shifta, that he knew by tradition that one must wash his hands for protection against this evil spirit. And to this he would place a water jug, and hang it by the door, saying, anyone who needs it, let him come to the house and let him wash his hands, so he will not be in danger. Seems to me like he understood, but he didn't know how to say it. The only way to get this demon off your hands is to wash off of you is to wash your hands. So let me just see if there's another one that I can show you about the Shivta demon. These are all here. So this is not in the Talmud. This is not in the Talmud. This is Rambam. This is Maimonides, who was a doctor On Yom Kippur and on the 9th of Av, which are fast days, right? That's Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av. You're not supposed to wash normally, right? You're not supposed to bathe on those days. It says though, where's the line here? People are allowed to wash though. Let me just see. I don't see it right here. Thought it was here. Hold it. Let me just see if I skipped over it. Shifta. You're given permission to wash on Yom Kippur, for example. Well, here, I think it's actually in the Talmud. Yeah. This is the tractate on Yom Kippur. A woman may rinse one hand in water so that she does not touch food before she washed her hands in the morning and give bread to her child. She need not be concerned about violating the prohibition of bathing on Yom Kippur. So a woman who's feeding a baby definitely should wash. Okay? What is the reason for this? What is the reason? Abaya said, due to an evil spirit named Shifta. It doesn't actually say evil spirit. It says due to Shifta, but they know that in other places, Shifta is referred to as a demon or an evil spirit, whatever, who resides on the hands that have not been washed in the morning. So to prove Joyce's point, I think when they talked about things like demons or evil spirits or things like that, they were talking about bacteria. And I think folks, if you or I could see the bacteria that were floating around this room right now, we'd never leave the house. Right?
You have bacteria in your house.
I understand, but we never leave our bed. We'd be scared, right? Yeah. So we couldn't handle it. So the interesting thing here is that it seems as though the rabbis understood that we can't handle this. So I just you can't handle the truth.
But isn't that the genius of God and humans, is that you need to be exposed to it to build immunity to it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but also understand that even though these people didn't understand, I think the point here is that even though they didn't understand this stuff like we do, they understood something. So here's what it says.
Even 1,000 years ago, they knew oranges were good for you.
Okay, well, let's read about this. Let's read. We're almost done with the demon part. Abaya said, they are more numerous than we, and they stand over us like mounds of earth surrounding a pit. Rav Huna said, each and every one of us has 1,000 demons to his left and 10,000 to the right. God protects man from these demons, as it says, 1,000 may fall on your side. So the actual text simply says that they're all over us. These demons are all over us. And we'll read a little bit more because we have a few more minutes. Summarizing the effects of the demons, Rava said, the crowding at the Kala, the gatherings for Torah study during Elul and Adar, is from the demons. The knees that are fatigued, even though one did not exert himself, is from the demons. Those clothes of the sages that wear out, despite the fact that they don't engage in any physical labor, is from friction with the demons. And those feet that are in pain, that's from the demons. So this is going to get a little weird. One who wants to know that the demons exist should place fine ashes around his bed, and in the morning the demons' footprints appear like chicken footprints in the ash. One who seeks to see them should take the afterbirth of a firstborn black female cat, born to a firstborn female cat, burn it in the fire, grind it, and place it in his eyes, and he will see them. He must then place the ashes in an iron tube sealed with an iron seal, a gushpanka, which is the Aramaic for this, lest the demons steal it from him, and then seal the opening so he will not be harmed. Rav Beve bar Abaya performed this procedure, saw the demons, and was harmed. The sages prayed for his mercy on his behalf, and he was healed. So I will tell you this. That's the end of that discussion, by the way, just so you know. We're not going to have any more demons for tonight. Don't be scared. The good news is they can be beaten.
What about the ashes of a mongrel dog?
Now, these are recipes, by the way, for seeing demons. Just so you know, they're in the Talmud. People probably tried to do it. The Talmud definitely doesn't encourage people to do this. These are strange things, but just understand that these were not just in our tradition. These were also things that floated around in the ancient Near East, especially Babylonia. It wasn't Babylonia, it was Persia, the Persian Empire at this time.
Is this, like, I've never read any of it.
These are Aramaic.
Is
These
this
are,
Kabbalah stuff?
it's even before Kabbalah, it's pre-Kabbalistic. So this is Talmudic. These are healing and magical traditions from 2,000 years ago. Understand that in this area of the world, magical incantations, magical spells were very, very prominent. And they are in lots of places. We just happen to know a lot about them because number one, they're in the Talmud. Number two, we found these incantation bowls all over the place in the ancient Near East, especially in this area, Babylonia, of Iraq and Iran. We found them because the bowls were buried underneath the homes. And so they're still there. When the homes collapsed and whatever, they collapsed over the bowls and they were found. They've been found all over the place. They're magical bowls that people would put under their homes so the demons wouldn't come into their homes. And so they were written in Aramaic and they were written in circles so that the demons would get trapped in the bowls. And they found them all over the place in this area. Understand that, yeah, but these bowls were specifically had Aramaic written in circles around them. They're magical bowls. Understand that, here, I'll just show you.
But apparently they knew more than they thought they knew.
Well, people,
They had snake oil salesmen back then.
yeah, well, here's what they look like, folks. So these are the bowls. And they found them all over the place. You see it, they're written in Aramaic or they're written.
That's a flat?
No,
I see, that's the bowl.
Yeah. so they would put the bowl underneath the house and then this would keep them in. Understand, folks, that you all know an Aramaic word that's the key to every magical spell. What's the most famous magical incantation? Yes. And with that, we'll magically end tonight. Abracadabra is Aramaic. It means I will create as I have spoken. Abracadabra. You all know Aramaic, even though you didn't know Aramaic. None of your friends know that. You can amaze your friends with the fact that you gave them an Aramaic phrase to blow their minds. Every magical spell that you've ever heard in a magic show where people said abracadabra, they're using the magical incantations of the Talmud, of the Aramaic. Oh yeah. So it didn't come from nowhere. People knew, and again, some of it came from Kabbalah. The Kabbalah kept some of these traditions alive. And again, we've been reading the Talmud for 1,500 years in the current form that we have it. It had a way of seeping into lots of places. So with that, again, we'll magically end tonight, but don't be scared. Don't be scared of the demons. I have no training myself in battling these demons, but I do have faith that no one will have problems. What?
It was the afterbirth.
It's the afterbirth. You don't have to kill the kitty. It's just a placenta. It's the placenta. It's cat placenta. Notice by the way, the cats, the magic of the cat, right? Cats. All right, everybody, take care. Thank you, and apologize for the weird thing we had tonight with it being displayed. Mike's trapped. Sorry, Mike. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.